Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Vdoor Locksmith. We are live from Wimberley, Texas today. I'm happy to have a great show set up for you guys. As per normal, if you guys are watching out there in the land of internet, outer space, whatever, let us know if you can hear me first of all, so that we can, if we have any technical difficulties, we can handle those. And then also, let us know where you guys are watching from. We're always excited to be able to know who out there in the land of LinkedIn, and now also YouTube and Facebook, because we're broadcasting live on all three today. Who's out there watching and can participate in conversation. So let us know if you can hear us. Wait on that one just before we start introducing all the guests, and then I keep talking, any of that stuff. Okay. Are you hearing stuff?
I can hear.
Ma, the meatloaf! Sorry, the guys asked for it. So we've got, okay, so you can hear it?
I can hear it.
Okay, so then we're good. All right. Oh, look, everybody else is going live on LinkedIn at the same time. I'm guessing I'll probably also start getting text messages here in any minute, or people wanting to call me and buy something. So it's been a very boring week in oil and gas. Not really much going on in the world. So I figured, why not have a great Vdoor Locksmith show and be able to bring in some very talented, very educated people here to the show. We've got the Dream Team from Nabors, and so starting over here, we've got Robbie Jacob, Austin Groover, and Shane Hansen. Sorry, I almost messed it up, guys. Thank you guys so much for being on the show today. I really do appreciate it. At any point in time, you guys talk, man.
David, I first thank you a lot for having us on the show. We've seen some of the previous episodes, and we really appreciate having us on. We're really excited about the show today.
Well, this makes up for me not having multiple shows here in the past. I'll tell people, it's difficult to book people for a live show. We also have in-house today. There's a fly that's buzzing around, so if you hear a little zzz, or me like looking up or whatever, it's somehow I got in the office today. Whatever. Anyways, so we'll jump into it. Or actually, first let's see. So we've got John DeWart. Oh wow, we got 25 people watching. You guys are very popular today. Habib Bilal, James Reagan can hear you down in Brazil. David Till down in Haynesville. We got Jenny Wilson that's watching from Magnolia. She's actually a Joe Foreman's great marketing person over there. Daniel Barton, John DeWart, Habib, and Brian Dugas. John's already, I think, asking questions. See and hear you from Steamboat Springs. It is snowing. Wow. And then we just got somebody saying they're watching from Saskatchewan. All right, so we've got plenty of people watching. All right, so like I said, nothing's really happened this week. Nothing really interesting that's going on, so we won't talk about any of the boring stuff. Obviously, for you guys, Nabors is, if you bring up Nabors, people think of the drilling rigs first. Obviously, there's a lot of other product lines and IP within the company that are other things. Can you tell us about some of the stuff that you guys are doing that's outside of just, your basic, drilling rig contractor stuff?
Sure, Austin, I think you've been around the longest. You want to?
Yeah, so of course, Nabors is known for our rigs. We have great rigs, but we also have services, like you mentioned, and I think we hopefully are getting more known for our services. I think those in the directional industry are probably familiar with Rocket. It's the leading oscillation tool. It's been around for a long time. And what we've done as of late is we have Nabors as a technology platform. So we want to deliver other value-added tools to the operators using the Nabors rig as a platform. And so one of those that we're here to talk about today, we're really excited about, is our directional drilling platform, which we deploy on Nabors rigs. That being Rocket Pilot, which is an automated slide execution system, and our RigWatch Navigator solution, which automates the directional decision making.
I should actually do this. Why don't you guys, y'all can introduce yourselves, even though we already introduced. Why don't you tell us kind of like what you guys do within Nabors, each one of you? So,
sure.
Shane, go first.
So I'm the director of the wellbore placement and automated wellbore placement group, and I have two very talented ops managers that work for me, and that's Austin and Roby, and I'll let them talk about it.
And wellbore placement for others outside of the Nabors
is directional drilling.
In directional drilling,
yes,
right?
Sir.
I did notice you did some great branding there to be able to kind of change it up a little bit, some new nomenclature there. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Austin.
Yeah, so my job is really to help operators go from traditional wellbore placement to automated wellbore placement. So I see myself as like a facilitator of that process. both to help them introduce the technology and then provide the expertise so that they can successfully deploy it in their program.
Yeah, my name is Roby Jacob. I'm the operations manager for the wellbore placement side of the business, which, as you mentioned, is the directional drilling and the MWD services. So I've been in that capacity for about 2 years. So Austin, myself, and Shane, we've kind of been brought together to help the directional drilling and the traditional methods, as well as the advancement of automation services, all come together in a synergy.
So talk to me a little bit about, like, obviously we it's almost like two different pillars. You've got the automation, and then you've got, I don't want to call it the legacy, but kind of the industry standard. How do you guys try to kind of like, work together and morph those two together? Like, what are the big overlaps that you guys have there?
I mean, I think the biggest thing that we've done recently is we've decided to make one group, right? There is no more two groups. This is automated. This is traditional directional drilling. We are one group on one mission to deliver that value to our clients.
A single three-headed monster.
A single three-headed monster. So, everything that we do when we bring these jobs out to our clients is a coordinated effort in terms of how do we drive value and bring that. And I think probably the best way to answer that question is maybe talk a little bit about our service delivery model on what does a traditional job look like versus what would a crew complement look like on an automated job, and how would we go and execute that? Do you want to?
Yeah, I think what you said is correct. I mean, obviously there's a lot of overlap in skill set, right? I mean, to be able to successfully deploy an automated directional solution, you need seasoned directional drillers, right? You need people who've been in the field and can execute this service. So I think one of the things that's different in terms of the model is sending individuals who have been trained in our tools with automated directional drilling and can train the drillers and everybody on location how to use the technology. So there's really a lot of synergy, like Shane was saying. I mean, it only made sense for it to be one group.
So you said something good there as far as being trained up. What is like if you took somebody that either is seasoned, so there is two different questions. If you take somebody that's seasoned directional hand that's been working out in the industry for years, versus somebody who's completely, untrained in the directional arts per se, what's the time frame as far as being able to train somebody up to be able to use an automated system?
That's a really good question. I think it's
that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm asking
it's a good question.
Not gonna all be softballs.
So I think I'll start, and then I can hand it over to Roby, because he's going through training his entire team as well. So I think it's not so much the years of experience, although you could have somebody who has a lot of experience might tend to have maybe more objections than somebody who has less experience adopting a technology. But I don't think that's universally true. I mean, you have people that have been in the industry for a long time and done directional drilling the same way for a long time, and you introduce the technology to them and they embrace it and learn it very quickly because, like you said, they have all this experience and they can see how the tool applies to what they're used to doing. But you also have, we feel like our tool is, it's complex because we're automating a complex system, but it's very open and transparent. So even a new DD who maybe doesn't have as much experience, once you sit down and kind of go through the logic tree and how the system works, it makes sense. It's pretty rational. So I think the learning curve, I guess a cop-out, the learning curve is really the same for both groups. I think it's just somebody's willingness to learn something new is really the differentiator.
Yeah, I'm not willing to learn much new. That's where I'm staying at right now.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that is very unique about the Nabors approach to this business is that, traditionally there was a directional company and then there was a rig company, and they were separated, right? And you had a lot of potential infighting or finger pointing of why the service wasn't delivered exactly perfect. And what we've been fortunate to do at Nabors is bring all that together, right? Our rigs operate for the service of directional delivery, and vice versa. The directional business unit is there to support the rig, so it's a synergistic union between the two, right? There's no finger pointing when stuff goes on. It's a all hands on deck kind of approach, right? And so we take that model and then we bring it into the directional drilling business and we say, okay, how do we automate this? And what we found is we've got probably some of the best directional drillers and MWD field professionals that we can find in the industry, and those guys, just being the best they are hungry for knowledge and hungry for the advancement of the technology. So we find a lot of, I guess, advantages in the people that we employ, because these guys are very technology savvy, they're very hungry, they're hole hungry, you know, they want to make the most ROP, and they're not shy for giving feedback. You know, a lot of times when you introduce new technology, you either get somebody that doesn't want to believe in it or see its advancement. Our guys are 100% on board, and it's one of those things I don't think you can replicate anywhere else.
That's probably why I didn't get hired back in 2011 when I applied, or 2010 when I applied. I think at that point in time it might have been Ryan. Quite Nabors yet, but anyway. All right, let's see if we've got any more comments. So we've got, we've got people. Brian Nugas from Bowbridge, guys up in Saskatchewan, Special Sealed. Oh, we're going to throw their company name out there. In Houston, Oklahoma, Lagos, Nigeria. Oh, wow, Midland, of course, Houston. And then John DeWart. I think John's already got a question here. Nabors is one of the leading drilling contractors developing drilling systems and automation. What automation apps are in their portfolio now, and what is coming next? So it looks like John's going to throw some softballs.
Sure. I do believe that we are leading in this space, and it goes back to your original question. You know, we're often looked at it just a drilling contractor, but what is the portfolio? We have several silos of business that we're delivering. So we're here today talking about, directional drilling, automated directional drilling. I'll let Austin talk about the products and Roby in a second, but we also have a couple of sister businesses that, we work closely with. So we call it TRS, tubular running services. It's typically, running tubulars in the hole. We have a two-pronged approach in most of our automation. It's automation and integration to the rig. So that's a mature business with Mark Cardle is the director that runs that business. And so you can think about
Shout out to Mark.
Yeah, hey Mark, I hope you're watching today. You think about a traditional, you can run it with just, your casing tongs and your elevators and your spiders. A step forward that we went as these wells got longer, where you're using like CRTs, casing running tools, and allowing a little bit more action. Well, we've taken that a step further, and everything's actually integrated into our top drive, and using the top drive to really deliver that integrated and automated, product. So that's casing running tools. We also do MPD. MPD, is I think again, as wells get more challenging, and we have those
managed
constraints.
pressure drilling. For anybody that's not in the industry
and not in that
doesn't
industry.
get all of the
Acronyms.
acronyms and alphabet soup. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll try and make more of an effort to explain the acronyms. You're right. MPD, managed pressure drilling. So again, very special place for us. We've made sure that our rigs are set up on the hardware side to be very efficient in the way the equipment walks with the rig. But again, integrated and automated. So some of the products we have, like control of downhole pressure, really automated by the rig equipment. We have our Rig Cloud, suite, which is really more on the data analytics side that we're doing all that automation, and then we have our full suite. And since this interview is really about the directional drilling, I'll let Austin go through each.
We can talk about anything. We don't have to. We can talk about dinner last night.
But you want to go through the portfolio a little bit?
Yeah, I think I touched on it just a little bit earlier, but Rocket Pilot is the automation of the execution of slides. And so what that means for us at Nabors is we think of everything in the process that you do to slide. So it's more than just the on-bottom piece of, making adjustments to your top drive quill or oscillations to steer. It really starts the step before, which is, maybe working out your trap torque, lining up your tool face, all the typical off-bottom activities that a directional driller would do is included in what we consider slide automation and Rocket Pilot. So really, Rocket Pilot does everything from getting you set up to slide in the most efficient way, putting the bit on bottom, executing the slide with good tool face control, and then even picking up after the slide. And so we control this. It's process automation, and we have certain steering algorithms that really control what it is that we're doing to manipulate tool face and hold a good target. The navigator piece is, like I said earlier, it's automating the directional decision making process. And so that involves, uploading a well plan and putting some boundaries around that and some conditions. And we think we have a fairly unique solution in that we allow a lot of customization. So we think, every field is different, has different things like, build rates typically drop in this formation or things like that. So we can build all that into the program, and then it'll consistently, give instructions on, when to slide and when to rotate, and really try to optimize that process. So.
And then I think the second part of the question is what's coming. So that's the stuff that we have available today.
Yeah, so tell me everything you're not allowed to say. And I know that Nabors
Big Brother
is watching you.
Yeah.
They're just waiting for you to slip up and say something.
No,
they're going to take away your lunch ticket.
They're very much proud of our technology portfolio, and we appreciate the resources they give us to work on. Do you want to talk about MWD Suite and as something?
Hopefully Tony's watching. Is Tony watching?
Yeah, so MWD Suite is our idea of what decoders and the ability to centralize something on a rig platform should be, where you can just come in with your MWD equipment, be able to plug into the system and be able to decode, do your logs, do your surveys, do your daily reports, all within Rig Cloud. So that's the platform that hosts all these apps. So the other part of it, I guess we were also talking about technology, but I kind of wanted to dive in a little bit on, we were talking about traditional directional drilling when we started the podcast, and we went to automation and stuff like that. And so
we're all over the place.
Yeah, we're kind of all over the place. But one of the things that we look at is like, the traditional directional driller role and MWD role was to provide a service and be subject matter experts on location, right? To be able to provide value for the operator. And with more and more technology and how things have gone, some of the guys have gone in-house and things like that. What we're hoping to do with automation is really take control, get project management back on location, and I think that's one of the things that we kind of brush over and don't really touch on. But we're wanting to make sure that our personnel and our field professionals are able to make an impact, like a meaningful impact on location. So that's one of the important things for me is the project management role.
So that's an interesting concept you bring up. So now with automation kind of not being so much as folklore anymore. Now it's part of the industry. It's part of what's taking place. How do we now go about executing the training of directional drillers? Even though that role is, I'm not saying it's going to go away, but it's kind of limited in its capacity as far as how much the decision making and hands-on. Obviously, through John DeWart and some of the D-Tets group, they say that the ideal role is to be a supervisory role, but obviously you have to have come up to be, you're going to be promoted up to supervisory role. So how do you take on that challenge now of being able to train up new guys to being directional hands?
Sure. Well, we don't really start with, let's say, people without industry experience. We're starting with seasoned directional drillers and seasoned MWD professionals. And what we're doing is we're trying to take them into locations like especially in North Dakota and the Bakken, where we've got a lot of automation projects running at the same time. And what we like to do is introduce those guys to multiple rigs running automation and let them get hands-on training there, kind of offline, right? They're not under the pressure to deliver the well. There's already personnel, allocated to that project. So these guys are given 2 to 3 weeks to learn all of the automation processes, the suites, the tools, and how to actually deliver the slides with the recipes and stuff like that. And what it does is it allows them a training environment where it's non-critical because, they're basically there to learn, right? We're basically giving them the opportunity to learn and digest as much information as possible. And then we'll bring them back, to probably closer to where the activity is operating for us and where we've got our new automation projects kicking off. And we typically what we'll do on a new rig, what I've seen, kind of going hip and hip with Austin is that we get to a new project, we kick off, we'll be training drillers and we'll be training directional hands at the same time. So we've got both sets of parties getting trained. And then as we progress the training and we start measuring competency and we see that the drillers are very capable of using the automation tools and the directional drillers themselves are also able to do it, we start reducing that staff on location, which with the intent to pick up more automation jobs.
So do you see, as far as, because in recent history there's been 2 different paths to becoming a directional driller. Mm-hmm. There's been either being an MWD hand and being in the directional shack, or there was, being on the drilling contractor side. And so now you guys obviously encompass both sides of that. So you see more now of like getting up to the driller spot and then maybe circling back to MWD to directional driller, or still kind of like you hire fresh MWD guys, you take, and then you kind of pick between the two. You can pick MWDs or you can pick drillers. Like, because I believe there is no perfect recipe, but what's your thought process as far as like feeding that funnel, as far as getting guys up that direction?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I mean, like you said, there was two paths to be in directional driller, right? There was the MWD side and then there was the driller side. Both had their pros and cons, and I think what we've got in the industry now, we've got a lot of younger people and older people with a lot of experience that have kind of melded their understandings and their core skill sets together. Honestly, we haven't noticed a difference like where you started. What matters is where you're at now, and the idea is to be hungry, technology focused, and an attitude that you're going to make it work. And that's what we found has been successful as far as key personnel to make these projects successful.
Yeah, if you look at our crew complements, we have all three of the groups that you just discussed. If you look at the people that are on the rigs today executing this, we have drillers, we have people that were MWD that became DDs, and we have seasoned DDs. And I think what Roby said was bang on. It's not so much where you came from. It's more your attitude and your mindset and what you're willing to do going forward.
Excellent. Maybe one of these days the MWD guys will be the top of the food
And
chain.
I know we're all over the place, but there's a few more technologies that I'm really excited about that we didn't get to. So
well, tell me.
yes, we're in the process of commercializing what we call drill a stand down. We're working on our commercial name for it right now.
That's not going to be the commercial name.
That's a lot of times you have a technology name that when you're working on it in-house you have to call it something. So ours was drill a stand down, which I think most people like.
Drill a stand down as fast as possible.
Drill a stand down. I mean, I think that's what all of our clients want, right? But this is also process automation. Mr. Scott Boone, been at Nabors a long time, our VP of automation. This is something he's been championing for a long time. We have it on a couple of rigs now. It's providing a tremendous amount of value. But basically, if you can imagine what we're working on as the next step, and drill a stand down is the first step, is digitizing wellbore delivery. And this is kind of like a buzz kind of phrase in the industry right now. But how could the operator create a well program, and then a rig or a service company come in and digitize that well program and deliver it? And we're already on phase one. That's in the out on our rigs today, going to multiple rigs, and very shortly we'll see that we call them MVPs, a minimum viable product. Our MVP on the digitizing the wellbore will be ready in the next couple of months. So this starts to get really, really excited. We were talking earlier out at the chairs about new nomenclature. We talk a lot about like recipes in automation and things like that. For us, we get so much in our world that we just think it's normal to the industry. But probably for a lot of the viewers, I mean, like what is a recipe? Like, what are these guys talking about? Like, how do you digitize a well program? But that's really where we're going in the next couple of months, and it's pretty exciting stuff.
I'm excited too. Okay, quick question. So I saw this one come in. That was John's. Okay. Mr. Hussein, I'm not going to try to butcher your first name. Is an applications engineer at Ulterra. So in automated systems, how do you slow down for formation tops before slamming into it, and then the system adjusting? I think I can answer that one, but I'm not going to. No,
go ahead,
no,
David.
no.
So I guess I'll talk maybe from the slide automation standpoint, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about the drill a stand down. But the way we handle like different formations with our automated system is obviously sliding, say, in the vertical at 2,000 feet is a lot different than sliding at 18,000 feet in the lateral, and what the system needs to execute is very different. So what we do is we bunch up either by formation or by depth, mostly by depth, where we say slides from this depth to this depth, use this methodology of sliding. So the driller has like a list of things that he can select from. So slide recipe from 2,000 to 4,000 feet, and he runs that. So we run different recipes for different formations.
Recipes being
Good, the makeup of how the engine is supposed to execute this process automation.
the engine.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna keep going down this rabbit hole until you
yeah,
feel like-
yeah, no, good question.
So can we say like an algorithm, or like a specific algorithm for a specific section?
Yes. So for instance, say let's say
We're not baking cookies.
correct. Yeah. So let's say we're sliding at 2,000 feet, and we can configure the rocket pilot system to either maybe tag bottom at a certain speed, or put in reactive torque at a certain depth, or react to this differential pressure a certain way. So all of how we're telling the system to react is what we call a recipe. Whether or not you do certain steps, and then how you interact when you encounter, say, a differential spike from going into one formation to the next. So that's built into how the algorithm is going to behave in that formation.
It's more than just the algorithm. It's as Austin said, it's also your operational parameters, so all your set points. So to Mr. Hussein's question there, which was really the drill a stand down product that Austin was hinting towards.
Drill stand down as fast as possible. Trademark David Gibson.
we'll look at royalties on that.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be lawyers.
I think the marketing department's watching. Give me a call. I can help.
But you digitize your well program again, so if you never know when that exact formation top comes in, and we can talk about intelligent ways to identify that maybe separately. But you anticipate in the next 100 feet that you're going to hit this formation top. Well, your recipe then says, I now know that I'm closer to this formation top, so my ROP set point needs to change, my weight set point needs to change. Maybe at that point, if you haven't been running like a soft torque solution, maybe your soft torque gets engaged, but your recipe really drives the digitization of that to make sure that you're not slamming the bit and BHA into formations. A human would know that the best practice is, my gamma goes up, I see additional torque, I need to slow that down. Why wait for all that to happen? You can proactively have the machine set that up slightly in the future, so that you're giving up a very tiny instantaneous performance time metric to make sure that you're not damaging things which would cost a lot more. And again, that's digitizing your wellbore delivery, and the machines are capable of recognizing and doing all of that.
Yeah, having all the different departments talking to each other is very important. Having the geology be able to tell you ahead of time, like, this is where we believe the formation tops are. Let's not drill through that one as fast as possible. So let's see if we get any more questions. How many fully automated directional drilling jobs does Nabors currently have going? Do you see an increase or drop in performance between conventional versus automated? Ooh, and that's from Daniel Barton, Directional Drilling Manager at Ensign. So feel free to answer or not answer that one. It's up to you guys.
I mean, we talk about it on our quarterly calls, so it's all public information. I mean, you want to...
Yeah, I'll start with the performance side. So that's always one of the questions is, you're going to roll out automation. Is this going to cost me any performance, or am I going to, what am I giving up by doing automation? And what we found in all of our implementations is, first, we're very disciplined at gathering KPIs before the run. So we at Nabors can measure all these micro KPIs and then the macro KPIs that you associate with slide drilling. So macro KPIs like slide ROP, tool face control, things like that. And then all these little small KPIs like how long did it take to set up the slide, and things like what is the total cost per slide. So before we go and deploy automation, we always have a really good understanding of what is the benchmark performance. Like what do we need to match or beat with the system. And a lot of times what we see is just by the nature of the fact that you have different directional drillers, executing this, there's a lot of variability in performance. So you would expect by rolling automation out to, first of all, shrink that variability, right? Because now you have a machine executing these tasks. But the question is, well, you're going to reduce variability, but is it going to be better or worse than what you've done historically? And what we've seen so far is that not only are we minimizing the variability between performance, but we're also actually performing a lot of times faster and better than conventionally, whether that be specifically on the pre-slide time, the tool face accuracy, the ROP. We always deliver on those metrics. And of course, there's places where we're able to, if you're sliding for 30 hours in the lateral, there's more opportunity to reduce that time there than maybe in a place where you're only doing 2 slides in the vertical, right? So the value that you can deliver depends on how much directional work you're doing in that section. But I guess in short, the summary is, in all of our jobs, we've been able to see we've decreased the variability in performance, and we've also actually been able to be in the top quartile performance for that area. So,
David, I think our team is fairly modest, and especially Austin in this front. But really, the guy who's made this thing come to life is Austin on the automated execution of slides. And
so you're blaming him for everything.
I'm not blaming him. I'm very grateful for
sounded like
for his talent. And he talked a lot about the technology, but I'll tell you this, we were very cognizant when we came into this market. We've been doing this for about 5 years, and so there's been a lot of frankly failures to get to success, and failures that our team has embraced. And I think Roby put it really well when he said, when we put people on a job, we tell them to be absolutely frank to us internally about what is working, what is not working, because if we don't know, we can't fix it. And although the technology is really impressive, I think what we've landed in that 5 years is we have a really special service delivery model. And so we knew that if we walked into clients in the last 5 years and we said, oh, we got this great thing and we're going to put it on your rig, but it might not go so well, and it might cost you a few days. Well, nobody's going to buy that, not nowadays, and in the markets that we've been in the last couple of years. And so we've worked very hard over the last 5 years to create this very special service delivery model. So when we walk in and we've done all our pre-work and we've set up our recipes correctly and we have the right guys on the rig, that although our plan is to leave that project manager there and the technology to carry the load, we will make sure that we deliver those wells without giving anything back in terms of time. And that's really what has allowed us to scale the business. So the other question is where are we at? Today we're on roughly 20 jobs, working for 10 clients in 6 basins. So this is not a science experiment. If you look at all the major basins in the U.S., we have automation in those basins for a very wide swath of clients. We've had little ups and downs, just like everybody else. We were adding probably 3 to 4 jobs a quarter there, pretty steadily all last year. We've given up a few jobs. Generally, it's not the technology that is a result of that. A lot of times, it's just a rig operator needs to lay down a rig, and they lay down the rig, and the automation job gets laid down with it. So.
Yeah.
But I really believe that it's not just the technology, that we've spent a lot of time on our service delivery and our people to make sure that we're delivering value for our clients.
So you mentioned something there. So now I know that this was a topic of conversation in the past at some of the IADD meetings and other SBE meetings I've been at, where a drilling contractor may have their own proprietary technology and that it only works on their rigs. So are you guys able or even allowed to be able to take your technology and put it onto another rig?
So I think we'll answer that. I'll take the one part and then I'll hand it over to somebody else. So there are, we've been actually automating in this industry for a while, but we never recognized it was automation. So when I was a DD and used to rock a pipe, you take a piece of chalk and put it on the pipe and tell the driller, turn it 10 times to the right, 10 times to the left, and that was oscillation. Well then, Nabors invented Rocket, which is oscillating the pipe for you, which is automation. Auto drillers that are out there, they're automation. Soft torque tools are automation. So we have a full suite of what we call performance products that are available to a wide swath of rigs. In fact, 50% of our activity with those tools is actually on other people's rigs. It was recognized that we had an industry-leading product, and we wanted to bring that to everybody, and so that's out there everywhere. The rig-based automation, whether it's the casing running or the automated wellbore placement, today is only on Nabors rigs by de facto of the market and how you can control your machines and who's going to let you, in behind the scenes to really do that. But I don't know if you want to expand.
No, I mean, you said it right. The automated execution, of course, is on the Nabors rig, so Rocket Pilot. But our Navigator system we can deploy on any rig. So
and MWD Suite as well
and
is something that will be rig agnostic.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple different models of how we roll out automation, I think, which is kind of the important part, right? It's not always, it doesn't have to be 100% Nabors rig, 100% Nabors directional. The model's been, the model's been executed in multiple different ways. We've got automation where it's completely Nabors rigs with no people on location. And when I say no people, I'm saying no directional personnel. And then there's a remote center that's running the operation. And then we've got the next model where it's Nabors wellbore placement, the rig, and localized supervision. And then you've got the third-party model where you may have a Nabors rig and you may have third-party DDs from another directional company, and both parties are monitoring the activities. So, I mean, it can be executed in multiple fashions. Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting jobs we have going on right now, it's a Nabors rig running the automation. It's a third-party directional providing the tools. They have a remote center doing the NWD, that directional third party, and we're doing the remote steering from the Nabors office. So you start to think about what this can create. It's a very dynamic situation where
creates good social spaces. Whatever that has to do with, I don't know.
But no, I mean you have all these different experts that are able to work in different remote centers and all contribute to the rig. But I think one of the models that we've talked about a few times that I'm really excited about, and Roby, hopefully you'll elaborate more on this one, but is the project manager role. So we think of the whole idea was like, okay, so if you automate the directional decision making and the execution of slides, what does the DD do on what does he do with his time now, since he's not doing either one of those things? And that's really where he could be contributing to other forms of performance improvement at the rig, right? And really be maybe that expert that's helping out with the
dishes, cleaning,
helping
making sure Netflix is running,
cooking steak for the company man.
Yes, those are all very important tasks that I would like my DD to do.
No, but like bit selection and helping out with motor selection, talking about those transition where we're going to be transitioning formations, what should we be doing, and that's really the model that we've got going on right now. How have your guys embraced that?
Yeah, absolutely awesome. I think that model there is where the guys become. Now they're looking at the entire scope of the project, right? Every well is unique, and they're pushing the limits and the boundaries on how do you deliver more performance, how do you get better, how do you make these wells faster, and that's the thing, that was like the old nostalgic directional driller MWD. They were always looking at let me push performance, let me exceed limits, and things like that, and because there's been some level of automation, some level of customer input, and other people, deciding what the operating parameters are going to be, we need to figure out how we can still push the envelope and increase performance and derive value for the operator, right? And so that's one of these things that in some of the roles where we've gotten our directional drillers to be these project managers, I mean, they're literally filling their day up with creative ways to squeeze out every bit of ROP that they can get. They're trying to make the entire location operate like a sewing needle, and that's one of the things that we think is going to drive Nabors' performance and quite frankly, like everyone's performance, right? And once we introduce these kind of technologies that free up opportunities and time for people to continually focus on performance, you're just going to see the industry just take off.
And that freed up time allows you to be able to have conversations with people you normally wouldn't have, be able to spend more time with the geosteers, the geologists, company man, or
look at data.
Even look at data, and as long as the data is good and clean, because I've been seeing some stuff lately, it's terrible. So
if you look at the way we've collapsed the well cycle time in the U.S., which is frankly amazingly impressive. Like I never thought that we'd be drilling wells as fast as we are in some of the basins. Like how could those people that are so intently there on executing a task really reflect on like, did I do a good job there? Could have I done better? And then by the time they're ready to drill the next well, they don't have time to think about what they did on the last well. But if you have automation, helping carry that load, and their entire job is like, okay, so what went well? How can I document that? Who do I need to engage? By default, and I agree with Roby, it's a great, really like the way he articulated it. This will drive the industry to a different model.
It's kind of one of those interesting things, everybody talks about KPIs, right? That's that acronym that's always floating in space. Everyone's like, what are your KPIs? How do you measure them? But when you're on location and you're a directional driller, and let's say you're on a 3-well, 5-well, 6-well pad, right? Your previous well, you just measure it with kind of like a gut feeling, or maybe it's in your daily reports, like we have this kind of ROP in this section and blah, blah, blah. But now with this automation, I mean, there's KPIs going, ringing the bell every day, right? And you're able to measure yourself measure your successes, and the wins and losses, and you're able to see, okay, on this particular well, this is what I did, this is what value it created, and you're able to continuously improve, right? It's always about continuous improvement.
Excellent. Now, I do want to shift around here. One of the things you guys were mentioning was being able to automate the directional drilling. So obviously that's with the standard motor. How do you guys foresee as far as the integration of more rotary steerable tools and being able to kind of automate that? Because obviously you're not holding tool face at that point in time. You're just saying bump up, bump down, bump left or right, or nudge this way, or
again, you're still just deviating a wellbore. You're still using the same trigonometry to do these things. You're looking at the same trends, whether they're rotary trends or tool effectiveness trends, and so all of that is still possible to automate, right? Again, it's something that we're working on and have solutions already mapped out, on paper, and we look forward to bringing them. Some of the solutions we already have that we're again an MVP. Nabors rigs can downlink to rotary steerable tools without having to install a surface system and chokes on the manifold, and that driller pushes play and tells them I want sequence number 6 executed, and it will execute the downlink automated today. So that space is moving and moving fast. We started on the harder project first, which was the traditional directional drilling.
Which is still a large portion of the market.
It's still the majority of the market.
And it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
I mean, it is interesting that rotary steerable is growing, and it's growing at a faster rate than in the past, but it still hasn't really breached that 25% mark, right? So it's something we're very aware of. We're working on that. We know the solutions. We'll make it a product just like we made the others a product, very soon.
And then you have your marketing department contact me and help out with those names.
There you go.
So, I want to see here. So we've got from a human factors engineering perspective, how do you keep a human in the loop, off nominal situations, and automation systems might not yet be prepared for, i.e. keeping a human engaged for diligence and purposes. Drilling and completions field engineer at Cimarex, Kyle Johnson. Thanks, Kyle, for the question. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think one thing that we can do, as we're, I listen to automation podcasts from other industries, like I think a good analogy sometimes is the self-driving car, right? So what have they done? So you think about some of these vehicles, and they can automatically drive and steer, but they flash a warning to the driver whenever the driver needs to take over, right? So that's one method that they keep the human engaged. And so you think about levels of alerts and like when you want the driller to interact with the system. So one of the things that we have with Rocket Pilot is we're actually scoring the slide as it's taking place. And if it looks like things are not going well or something is out of the norm, it alerts the driller, like something, maybe you need to take over. And we talk about automation and safety. That's a really you would want an automated car that can stop on demand, and if a human steps on the brake, for it to respond to that. And so that's what the way we've designed our automated systems is any point that the driller touches the joystick, he's back in control. But so to keep them engaged, I think there's two things. One, you've got to alert them whenever they need to be involved in the operation, and then I think just with the training, explain to them where there's potential, risks with the system. So I think right now our alerting system has really helped keep the drillers engaged when they need to be. And throughout the slide with Pilot, we're making modifications to all these settings, and we're notifying the driller as we're doing that. So there's a log there on the screen that's telling the driller, these are the changes that I've made throughout this slide, so that at any point in time he, maybe he got distracted or something like that, he can look back and see, okay, this is what the automated system has, been doing during this slide.
I like where Austin took that thread. You know, I think we have to be humble enough in our industry to understand that we are not the first to automation. There's a lot of other industries that have done it faster than us, and so
yeah, oil and gas is definitely not leading the way in some things.
And so, you know, having that humility to look at those other industries and understand that we're doing, and I would love to share some of our best practices, but I feel frankly that that's what's giving us an advantage, and you know, not only in the technology, but just applying some really good industry best practices to say, how do you keep that human engaged? And it's a great question, and something that we had thought about and put in place with some of the things we do, particularly our development partner that we started this technology with was very cognizant of that, and so there have been a number of things that have been put in place on that operation to make sure that the human is still in touch with their job and remains sharp at their job.
Yeah, it's an interesting catchphrase. You know, we call it automation, and it's, when you think about automation, some people tend to think about man versus machine, but what we've designed is man with machine, right?
Absolutely.
And when Austin mentioned the pilot system actually giving directions and telling you what it's doing, that's a constant feedback between the driller and the automation system, the pilot system, so that the driller can see, like, oh, this is why pilot's doing what it's doing. And actually what we found is the more engaged the drillers are, the better they become at sliding themselves. So if they have to intervene, every direction that they've seen has only made them that much better at doing it themselves.
So do you think some of the directional drillers, now that, you know, like I look at, you know, Matt Isbell with Hess has gone on, you know, record and saying so much great stuff about you know, their remote operations center and some of the automation that they have used, wink wink, how do you see, as far as like the directional drillers themselves, because it's almost like they're becoming more geographically focused on a specific area. Do you see them still being able to develop and be able to branch out to where once it was like, you know, the bragging rights where, like, I've worked all over the world, I've drilled offshore, I've drilled on land, you know, I've drilled in Alaska, Russia, everywhere. But now it's like you see not only directional companies but operators that are asking for directional drillers in a specific area. Does y'all system lean into that, or what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think it plays an advantage to it because, like you mentioned, you know, there used to be guys that were guys and ladies that were very basin focused, right? They could be somebody that spent the majority of their career in the Eagle Ford or in the Bakken or in the Permian, right? And so they became coin phrased, you know, as a Bakken person or a, you know, Eagle Ford person. With the automation, what it allows you to do with the recipes there is it gives you that technical advantage, that learning, without actually having to be there, right? If you're reviewing the recipes and you're wondering why there's this significant change in how you're tagging bottom or what kind of weight you're applying, it's giving you that feedback, it's giving you that experience. So what we're trying to do, or what's essentially is happening, is we're shrinking that 20-year experience down, right? We're making sure that the guys that are coming up in the directional drilling industry, they're learning all of those, that gut knowledge, you know, they're learning that in a much condensed time.
And that's a really good point. So, you know, you talked about you know, being a Bakken DD or being a West Texas DD or something like that. Well, you know, as Shane was saying, we've been developing and deploying pilot for some time now. So what ends up happening is, you know, we're on, you know, whatever version we are now, we'll deploy in a region and we'll find maybe a particular formation or something that slides a little different. And so we'll take that offline and say, what are some of the other practices that we do across the U.S. and is there anything that can solve this particular problem? Sometimes there's not. And so we'll develop a solution kind of with the idea of maybe sliding in the brushy or something like that. And we test it out there and it works really good. And then we show that to the rest of the team and then we're like, well, I wonder if that would work in the North Dakota formation. We have something that works pretty good, but, you know, and so we are able actually to take those lessons from one basin to another a lot quicker. I mean, I know your question was more about the DDs, but if you think about from a technology standpoint, when we find something that works really good in, you know, formation A here in West Texas, there's no reason why we can't, you know, take that solution and apply it somewhere else if it's appropriate. And what's cool about the Nabors system is then we can upload that recipe remotely. And now the driller has that tool. Next time he gets to that depth, it slides in this manner and tackles that problem that way. So So I think it's actually kind of both ways. You know, you got the drillers, the DDs who get in these remote centers can get experience from a bunch of different areas, and then you can apply lessons learned from one area to the other a lot quicker, right? Because it's not localized knowledge. It's
It's interesting because now you're seeing that reduction in time span that it takes to get the experience, because the wells are being drilled so much faster, right? A DD from 10 years ago might have drilled 12 or 15 curves in a year, and now you've got DDs that are drilling 12 to 15 curves like every quarter, right? And so I think so now, instead of, if you say I've got 10 years experience, that's the same as another guy saying I've got 2 years experience.
We talk about the same thing all the time.
It's right there with it. So quick, we've got a question here, unless you guys want to talk about something random. You've discussed the need for the right people in automation and deployment in transitioning seasoned DDs to project managers. Is automation going to disrupt the pipeline for creating these people? Kind of already asked this. Where does 10-year hand come from, and after being demanded for projects? We kind of already covered that. Sorry, Mark. Go back and watch the beginning of the show, boss. It's Mark Woolworth over
there was a couple leading from that last one when you're looking for questions. So I was thinking about 5 or 6 things I'd answer, but I'd focus in on one thing. I'm a big fan of Fred Dupree. Watched the Fred Dupree show, but what I like about
on the VdoorLocksmith.
On the VdoorLocksmith.
Brought to you by David Gibson.
Is that physics is physics. It's the same in Russia. It's the same in South Texas. It's the same in North Dakota. And when you start embracing that and understanding that physics works. So if there's a best drilling practice or a technique for executing a slide, well, that's going to work in all these different formations and all these different geographies. What's cool about automation is those fundamental techniques based on physics work. It's then our job to create the recipe, which is really the human interaction, because you have to look at the data, you have to look at the techniques, you have to decide that this works better, you have to test it, you have to go back and look at the data. And so once you respect that the physics works in all of these basins, your expertise and your people are really focusing on the recipe side of it. And that's where we see the continuous improvement, and we start really getting granular on certain depths and certain formations and the way we do that. And you talked about Matt and Hess and the projects there. If you look at the amount of consistency and the learning that they've used with that, they no longer learn one well at a time. They learn 6 rigs at a time, and that has enabled their learning curve to absolutely turn upside down. And it's things like that. We often talk in our group are like, what are the unintended consequences? You go and you build something, or you put a process in place, or you have a technique, but what were you not expecting that to come up? I would have never thought originally when we did this, wow, if you have one person looking at 6 wells and they learn something on a vertical on rig number 1, and they only have one supervisor, and we don't have to have any conversations. Hey, David, you're over on rig 4. I just did this on rig 1. You're like, well, that's you. I don't know. You have one person supervising. They just save 4 hours there. They have a conversation with their supervisor. They instantaneously spread this over all 4 rigs at that moment, driving performance on a fleet level rather than on an individual rig level. As to Roby said, maybe I've looked at my KPIs. Maybe it's just a gut feeling. Maybe I change something on the next well. Maybe I don't have time. But when you look at how that changes an operator's world, it's pretty substantial, and it's not something that I thought about when we first started doing this.
So John DeWart brought up a great question, which was, now that drilling contractors and directional drilling companies, for that matter, are increasing drilling performance, they're not really being compensated in a way that favors that drilling performance. What do you think the industry should do to be able to fix that, or how do you think we can go about fixing that?
Man, if we could answer that question, we'd all probably be a lot richer than we are today.
Are you not allowed to answer it? If you're not allowed to answer it, it's perfectly
I think
fine.
it's a normal question. I mean, the entire industry struggles with that. We drill ourselves out of jobs, is what we say, right?
I mean, we think of we're partners with our customers, right? I mean, we want to deliver value to our customers, and we save them a certain amount of money, and we would like to take some of that as well, right? And we have to deliver value, and I think as an industry, we have to share that. But that's what we try to do. We're not just charging to charge because we have new technology or because it's the next cool thing. It's we're delivering value, and our customers see that, right? And they see that we're delivering value. So
I think it's a
we're
great
able to come to
testament.
commercial agreements.
If you look at the number of jobs we're on today, because people often ask, like, is this stuff real? Well, how would we have the number of jobs we have today with clients commercially paying for those jobs if we weren't delivering that value? So, but I do take to your point that it is hard, and we have to deliver that value and come up with creative ways of commercially, capitalizing on that. And it's something that we struggle with every day.
Yeah, I think if we're looking at it from an OFS experience, right? For an oilfield service company, we're shaving days off, but we're reducing our exposure on location, so we're reducing revenue. Well, quite frankly, the faster you drill, that opens up the market for more operators to get in the business, right? Because they can see a quicker ROI. They can see that, hey, if I can drill these wells in this budget, I can make this much money. So this continuous improvement from the oilfield sector is driving more production. It's driving more exploration. So we're hand in hand with our partners, It's one of the things that we often don't think about. We sometimes say, okay, we're drilling faster, so we have less days on location and I made less money. Well, yeah, but you're also creating opportunity, right? You're creating opportunity for other people to enter into the exploration sector of it.
That's a great point. I've never even heard anybody, argue from that perspective, but that's very true that, when these guys are doing their AFEs, if they're saying, oh, this is going to take 12 days at this, and they're like, I can't do it. Oh, if we could shave it down to 6 days, then we could do it. Then we could come in and drill in this area where nobody else is drilling at. So it's a very, very valid point. So haven't got any more questions. Hey guys, let us know where you're watching from. Please share this. Let everybody see it. So we're almost right at about an hour. So I'll give you guys one more question, and then if we've got anything else from the LinkedIn Live or Facebook or YouTube, even though I'm not looking at comments from there. So hopefully, maybe we'll get something from there. Yeah, Mom, she's gonna check it. So, so as of recently, some of the things that I've seen in the industry is operators going more a la carte and saying like they're in-housing their DDs, they're selecting the motors that they want, they're selecting a separate MWD company from the directional drilling company, even if they have in-house, right? So like each one of these is becoming essentially its own pillar, its own vertical as far as services out at the rig site. But at the same time, you also see companies like yourself and some others that are starting to incorporate all of those services into one. Where do you guys see the future of the industry? Do you think it's going to become where there's just a handful of service companies that have ownership of the rigs, have their own branded technology, or do you think we're still going to continue to see the splintering of the different services being provided?
The only thing I can say first to start is whatever the three of us say, I mean, this is our opinion, right? This is not, neighbors speak, if we answer that question. I think the beautiful...
They're just here doing an interview. Don't...
if you
have the HR and legal department go to lunch.
If you look though, I think as Roby and Austin have articulated very well, is that we support all those models, right? So I know on some of our integrated projects that we're doing today where we have all the services, the casing running, the MPD, the automated directional, the project management, we have unlocked a tremendous amount of value for our clients. You go to other operators who want to do it a different way, where they want to take a little bit more control of the equipment, and we work with them, and that's the beauty of having a technology, we call it a platform. You have that technology platform that you can plug and play with whatever you need, and we can make it work. So, I mean, it can go a lot of different directions. I think you got that sense from Roby too when he talked about the different service delivery models we have just for automated directional. It's different operators want to operate in different models, and we support all of those models. So.
I definitely agree. I know I have worked for some operators that are like, we've got no clue as far as directional drilling, and then you get the other ones that are like, no, this is how you directional drill. Well, you're like, all right, we'll do just what you want. So, John DeWart did say, this is a great show. Shane, Austin, and Roby shared great insight in their responses. Very open and high value. Oh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Y'all know John? I met John.
Yeah,
before?
we see him at all the events. Of course, we know who John is.
Great guy.
Mm-hmm. There is one I would like to share with you if you allow us. So it's back to things like what didn't you expect, or what was an unintended consequence. And
Yeah, I was going to ask that one, then I got sidetracked with something else.
Okay. So when we were first doing this, and like I said, we'd meet some challenges along the road. We'd be bumpy, and we were the people involved, all three of us and our teams below us, we take this project, it's our baby. We take it quite seriously, and so you hit a speed bump and you take it very literally, and we're like, well, we got to figure out a solution to this. Like, what's going on? Well, one of the things that we didn't expect that as we were developing this was we actually created an efficient drilling diagnostic tool by automating directional drilling. And what I mean by that, not just a bunch of jumbly words, is that when you're on 20 rigs or 30 rigs or 40 rigs and automation is working on all of those rigs and it's working efficiently, and as Austin said, you're delivering either at the best performance of that rig fleet or better, and all of a sudden you have a BHA in the hole and you turn on automation and something's not working. Of course, nobody likes change, and the quickest thing to say is, well, obviously it's the automation that's not working. That's what it has. But we're on 20 rigs or 30 rigs, and it's working in all these basins. What we discovered is that if you put I call it a digging machine, right, for lack of a better word for the layman. You got a bit, you got a motor or an RSS, you have it downhole, it's digging rock. Well, if you put an inefficient digging machine, the combination between the motor or the bit downhole, and it doesn't efficiently dig, that's very hard to automate. It's also very hard for a human to execute high performance, right? So we've gained a lot of confidence over the last year that when we see automation struggling, that should be a warning light to operators to say, we need to trip and we need to do something different and get back to continuous improvement. Do we have to change a different motor? Did we put a big gauge, heavy set, aggressive bit in the hole in the curve because we were hoping we could get into the lateral and then drill it all in one run, and that has allowed us, not to drill the curve or have to trip out of the curve. And that was something that was also a really big surprise to me that I think is going to change the industry, that this removes one more variable in a drilling engineer or a superintendent or a service company's question book. Hey, are we struggling? Are we struggling because we got a new DD on board? Are we struggling because we picked up that bit? But once you embrace the idea that the technology works across a wide swath of formations and locations, and now it's struggling, rather than throwing the automation under the bus, let's really look at the data, because you very quickly look at an EDR, look at your differential, look at your tool face control, and you're like, they can't control this. And then when somebody spits out the dummy and let's do it manually, and they also can't control it, that just reaffirms that it wasn't the automation. We do not have an efficient digging machine downhole. We have several cases in the last 6 months where we engage the operator, we work together, their expertise, our suggestions, we change that digging machine, and you go back, and we did a series on LinkedIn as well, and we call it Killing the Curve. And man, you just start getting back to super high, really good performance. So that's something I was really personally surprised with, and I think it's going to add a lot of value to the industry.
Digging machine, trademark.
So, just to follow up on that, we were just at the SBIDC conference, and I was listening to this one paper about bit design and something that they had done with these depth of cut limiters. And one of the interesting things was that you had to apply, a certain amount of weight to really get the benefits of this, right? Well, you design this bit, and you design it with the assumption that it's going to be operated in a certain way, but then you deliver it to the rig, and was that communicated to the directional driller, to the driller? You may or may not get the efficiency gains from what you designed because you still have to execute. Well, with an automated system, you can really start to do interesting things like, okay, this is supposed to be a directional friendly bit, and because of that, you should theoretically be able to do, X, Y, or Z, whatever it's designed to do. Well, let's just program the system to do that and see if we get those performance gains from it, right? And not rely on trying to communicate that to the field and explaining and, make sure you execute this way, forget about everything you've done in the past because we've got a new system. You may or may not actually do that. But with an automated system, you can. So
So do you think, so this is just me brainstorming off of this, then if I'm a bit manufacturer, I would most likely want to be able to come up with some kind of like .bit file, right? That's like, this bit likes to be run between this and this, and in between this and this, and then not only when I drop off the drill bit at the location, I hand a USB or an email or something to the drilling contractor and say, hey, here, like, you know, plug this in with your automated system. Like this file goes with that bit. Do you think that would be a possibility in the future?
I think that's a very interesting idea, and in your what that
Trademark. Of course.
No, what you're just describing is it takes collaboration, right? Between, and this is what we were talking about. You know, we talked about the different service models that we support, and you know, with different directional providers in house. But what we're talking about here is you're taking like an operator saying, this is how I want to do my business with an automated system. So all the different service providers, as you're bringing in new technology, like how can we, now that we have automation, how could we better utilize this tool? Maybe a design that we did previously failed because we kept going over the differential pressure limit that we should have, or you know, stuff like that, like MWD Live, can this, you know, all the things that we can do and continue to improve performance now with this, whether it be like a USB file or, you know, providing some guidance on how it should be run to the team that's inputting this digital information into the...
I mean, ideally, I would think that you have like a file for the bit, you've got a file for the motor, or for any of the other, you know, kind of drilling tools that are downhole, whether it be like, you know, it's kind of a shock sub or, you know, one of those special tools or something. I'm trying to think of ones that don't have brand names, so I'm not just like plugging everybody. But like if you did that, then you would be able to, you know, like say, hey, plug, like this is our BHA, and like here's our BHA file for the bit, or here's the specifications for the bit, the motor, this, you know, we did the dyno on the motor, so like it likes this range, this is when it gets its top performance. And then that way, if like as they're drilling, essentially we're just brainstorming new ideas here on the show. Then as they're drilling, then like, you know, if it goes outside of one of those zones, you could have that alarm that says like, you know, you may not be getting the best performance out of this bit because, you know, this was the area that, you know, the bit designer designed it for. And not to say that that's wrong, but like, you know, just like, hey, here's where we thought maybe some of the optimal stuff is, but then, you know, maybe it improves, and then that feedback loop starts, because then you'd be able to give that back to the bit designer and say, like, actually your bit ran better at this versus this. I don't know. That's just me. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not asking questions. I'm just like rambling now. So, all right, we got another question here, but it looks like you were just about to say something.
No, go ahead.
So, what type of well profiles are you drilling remotely? Are you drilling horizontal wells?
So I'll let Austin and Roby, but I wanted, there was a key word in there that
From Mike in
that
Canada.
that sparked my interest. Mike me?
No, Mike, just Mike Cortison.
Okay, so he used the word remote, which it sparked a little bit of passion in me. When we run automation and when the driller pushes play on our rigs, on our HMI, it's a human machine interface. It's the screens that they sit next to their joystick.
Which is something that I'm going to go do in a couple of weeks. I'm really excited about it. So.
Yeah, we're going to set that up for you, David. You've got to get out and push play and put DD on your resume.
Yes.
Is that this is not remote. I call it the Wizard of Oz. You do not pull back a curtain and there's a couple of guys remotely operating our machines for us. You know, the recipes are in the PLC, they're loaded up to the computer, the guy pushes play or the girl pushes play, and then the machine executes those tasks. So it is not remote directional drilling, it is automated directional drilling. And that's something that's fairly significant because we don't really believe that there's anybody else in the industry today that's really automating directional drilling. To his point though, if you want to...
I'm a machine, I'm automating when I'm out there doing it.
Yeah, I mean we're drilling
like
horizontal wells. I mean we're in North Dakota, West Texas, South Texas, so we're drilling, you know, the wells that are being drilled in those areas. So 10,000 foot verticals, 11,000, 12,000 foot laterals with the system.
Northeast.
Yeah.
And Armin asks, are you using every steerable as well?
So our automated jobs are all motor jobs right now. So.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys, if y'all have any more questions or whatever, you have to save them until next time. I do have one last question. So Celeste wants me to ask you, why are you heating up fish in the microwave? Why are you just destroying the break room?
Fish in the microwave.
That's Shane. I don't know.
I have no idea what she's talking about.
She said she was gonna watch, and then she had made some post about fish in the microwave. Anyways,
Celeste is a drilling engineer that works for us, right?
yes, yeah.
Just so everybody's
She
clear.
shared it, and I was like, oh yeah, more people sharing. So
Obviously we work in an office like anybody else, and there's a common, food court area, and
I actually been there.
People-
I went and ate with Troy Hill one day, and I was really impressed.
Yeah.
Thanks for lunch that day, Troy. I got like a giant thing of lasagna. It's really good.
But I like other people. I'm sure I've put some stuff that is quite aromatic in the microwave before. So I'm sorry, Celeste.
So shout out to Tony, if Tony's watching today. Thank you so much for letting me have these guys and everybody else over there at the Nabors team. I know everybody was super nervous. It's live. But thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. Any last words from you guys?
No, we appreciate you having us here.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Thank you, David.
And next it needs to be Tony. Tony needs to come on the show. I mean, he's the one running the most rigs in the world, right? VdoorLocksmith. He is the VdoorLocksmith. He's the guy. So, Tony, if you're watching, or if your executive assistant's watching because you're too busy doing really, really important stuff, please relay the message. We'd like to be able to have you come on the show as well and hear about your past and everything that goes along with the show. Everybody else out there, thank you guys so much for watching. We really do appreciate it. I'm going to try my best to be able to continue bringing you guys episodes every Friday. It's been really difficult kind of doing the booking portion of it. We've had a lot of shows that have canceled just like the week prior or the week of. So it's not for a lack of trying. It's just the industry's difficult right now. I'm going to ask everybody out there that is watching or listening, please keep your head up. And if there's anything I can do to help you out, please feel free to reach out. Anybody that is in a position to where they are looking for employment, if you guys will send me a 30-second clip of yourself, we'd be more than happy to play them at the beginning or the end of the show so that we can help bring notice and awareness to you. Or if we can just put together a series of them, I'll put them out there on my LinkedIn. Not saying that I'm big and fancy on there or anything, but hey, any publicity is better than none. So as always, this is brought to you by Gibson Reports, because I don't do enough plugging my own show or my own program, not my show, my program, my entrepreneurial venture or whatever. And thanks to Mom, who is behind the scenes, who's doing all of the camera work. So to everybody else out there, as always, know your industry.